So today I want to talk about pain and essentially just our humanity, because I work a lot with singles, with individuals, and also couples. So it's wrapped around a lot around relationship. However, it always comes down to our relationship to ourselves, and most especially to our emotional selves, because we in our current society haven't really learned or been taught how to be with our humanity. And if anything, in fact, the complete opposite. So I was watching a Netflix show the other day, and the song "Fuck the Pain Away" by Peaches came up. And I was just listening to it, and I thought, yeah, this is so interesting. This is so indicative of how we deal with anything other than happiness. And the irony of the fact that we don't deal with our humanity, and yet we are so obsessed with happiness. Or let me just say that I don't want to say we, because I really feel like we've been programmed to function this way. Because when you're in the pursuit of happiness with the denial of all other aspects of oneself, of being you, of being human, what it actually creates is depression at its, furthest point, at the strongest point, it's depression, right? Or at the very least, unhappiness. And that works great for a consumer culture, right? It works fantastic. Keep people unhappy. They will always buy something so that they can become happy for a very fleeting moment. So anyway, I digress. So I was, looking into this. I was just really reflecting upon the fuck the pain away. And, I get it. When we are dealing with, I will never say negative emotions, because I find those terms to be completely unhelpful, if not just absolute bullshit. Sorry, I'm going to be blunt about it. Because our emotions are here for a reason. They're all messengers. They're all guides to help us understand the language of who we are on a better, more deep, profound level. So they're really useful in my mind, and it's just how we learn to be with them. But when dealing with emotions that are more challenging, of course, there's sometimes the kind of knee-jerk reaction to want to fuck the pain away, to numb it, to distract, to dumb it down, dull it down, and so we have an abundance of distractions in our world, in our society, and we have loads of things that can quite physically numb us down, be it drugs or sugar or, whatever. And then, of course, there's television and social media and all of these things. There's no shortage of things to help us run away from ourselves, which in the end is hugely disempowering and, ironically or not so ironically, keeps us in the very loop that we're trying to escape from. Like, keeps us in the fear that if we open the can of worms, it's going to be really bad. It's going to be a can of snakes. And that's it. Like, we just can't. People are too scared to even look. So keep the distraction going. Keep the numbing going. Fuck the pain away. And we'll be okay. But that's not living. That's surviving, but it's absolutely not living. It's certainly not thriving. So what do I want to say about that? I think firstly, we've got to, on so many levels, step out of the very black and white culture that we live in. And what I mean by black and white is you're either living in black or white. It's this or that, pro, anti, right, left. It's so restrictive. It's so limited. And I think I might have even said this in one of my previous podcasts. Life doesn't happen in the black and white. All of life happens in the shades of gray in between. All of it. But because we're trying to define our lives by you're either this or you're that. You feel this or you feel that. It's just ignores a huge part of being human, which is gray and messy and complicated and confusing and also beautiful and exquisite and revelatory. There's so many things, but we're oversimplifying something that is actually multi-textured and really profound. So what would happen if we didn't fuck the pain away? What would happen if we stopped distracting and stopped numbing and actually just sat with our human experience? And I have so many people that have like, oh, but Corinne, you can do that. You're good at that. It's like, yeah, but why is that? Because I've been working on it for like more than 2 decades. For a large portion of my life, I've been working on it, and primarily the way to work on it is to just stay and to build the awareness. I speak a lot with my clients that it's like the awareness of our experience is the number one ingredient, or I could say, like, if there's one practice that we're going to have, it would be that, like, just to build the awareness of what is going on in our experience, internal, external, the kind, as much as possible, the kind observer that is watching ourselves, going, oh, okay, this is the experience you're having right now. And it's taken me a long time to find that voice within myself, because I still have the voice less often. I certainly had it more when I was in my 20s, that voice that is, judgmental, that's mean, that's critical. And again, I think that that's a very learnt, archetype, a very learnt kind of authoritative figure. And I'm not going to go into like the depths of where I feel like that gets wrapped in between religion and parenting and, the type of authority we have in our society. I mean, for me, it's kind of like thousands of years wrapped into, one. But I think things, what people are trying to, this pursuit of happiness, and I'm sorry if I've talked about this before, but it just keeps on returning to this. The pursuit of happiness is not in being happy. The pursuit of happiness is in being at peace with our experience without the judgment. And, I think people are more unhappy than ever, perhaps. And because of that, far more judgmental. And then you could kind of say, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Because the more judgmental you become, the more unhappy you are. The more unhappy you are, the more judgmental you show up as. And all of it, like the only way to snag that, to pull the thread on that and to stop or at least pause that pattern is it always comes back to facing ourselves, looking at the can of worms and discovering that maybe actually it's not a pit of snakes, but it's just an aspect of ourselves that really, really needs our loving attention. And I know I've said this 1,000,001 times, but pain is not something that we should just say, fuck off. Pain is something that we should go, what do you need? Like, how can I love you? This again, knee-jerk reaction, this learnt instinct, not an instinct, but a learnt instinct in my opinion, to run away from ourselves. It's not serving us. And the thing is, when you see it play out in relationships, working with a lot of couples, my own past experiences, observing, friends in relationship, people that ignore their pain, numb their pain, run away from their pain, not only in the long run, they seem like they're doing okay at first, like, oh, it's so easy for them, they're just moving on, right? But they're not really, because that, like the shadow in the night, the wolf is forever chasing them. And not only that, because they're not processing and dealing with their pain, their emotions, their humanity, it builds and it gets worse and worse and worse, which leads to the like, oh shit, the can of worms is going to turn into the pit of snakes. I get it. And yet it's like you can always begin, and it's better to begin now than to add another 10 years of layers of crap. You know what I mean? So and not only are they the kind of avoidance, just building up their pain, even though they're pretending it's not there, but it's also really hurtful to the other person that has to deal, that has to carry the pain of both. I've definitely done that in the past. And it's an energetic thing. When one person is in denial over something, the other person has to carry the reality and the truth. And that's a heavy burden sometimes. You know, emotions need to be processed when a relationship, both in the relationship or after a relationship, or you know, whatever. I'm using romantic relationship as an example because that's the work that I focus on, but it can be in relationship to anything between family members, between friends, colleagues. Whenever we're in the denial of something, we're contributing in a passive aggressive way to the pain of that. So the very thing that we're trying to run away from, we're creating more of. And again, I find that all of this is just about redefining our relationship to our humanity. There is no good or bad, positive or negative emotions. There are some that might feel better and some that might feel more challenging, but they're not better or worse. Again, I will always come back to my metaphor of the color wheel. You might prefer one color to another, but you cannot say that it's better. They're all just colors. It's neutral. And they have a different expression, right? When you're painting something, different colors evoke different emotions or different, feelings or sensations, and there's a place for them. So there's a place for anger. There's a place for pain. There's a place for grief. They help us to process our human experience. I've dealt with like a tremendous amount of fucking pain in my life. And I guess I'm talking about this because I've just had a migraine for almost 2 days, and I get them, on an ongoing basis. And just being with physical pain is a really good, it's a hard, painful exercise in surrendering into pain. And I've also been in a hell of a lot of emotional pain in my life. And there are times where I fall deep down. I can go into the shadows. I can sometimes go into the place of like, I'm fed up with life. I want to go back home. I don't want to be here anymore. And yet I know that like escaping this reality isn't the answer. Whether that's like literally ending one's life and departing this planet, or, drowning oneself in Netflix and Instagram every day, all day. I just know that that's not the answer. I get the allure, but I know it's not the answer. And so then you're like, well, shit, okay. My options are I either escape, but I know that it's just right there behind me, like waiting, like, okay, Corinne, when the fuck are you going to look at it? Right? I know that it's there. And so, I've learned that, okay, turn around, look at yourself, turn around and look at yourself. Stop putting your back towards yourself. And again, for me, that's been for me personally, that's been one of the most powerful practices that I'm not in the pursuit of happiness anymore. I'd like to feel happy, of course, I'm human, but I'm in the pursuit of feeling at peace with who I am and with my experience. And even when it's so painful, whether it's emotional pain or physical pain, even when I'm angry and I'm frustrated and I'm confused and I'm fucked off with life and the universe. And, I had a moment last night when I was taking a walk and my head was still kind of hurting and just frustrated with like ongoing patterns of just being stuck and the energy being stagnant, and just like literally just threw my middle fingers to the sky and being like, fuck you. Fuck you. But there's something to just like, just even staying with that, just stay with it. And then it eventually changes. It eventually, we move through it and therefore out of it. It does change. God, I've just so understood the practice of that, of this too shall pass, and everything changes. The only constant is change. The only time that change does not occur and things remain stagnant is when we don't look at things, when we don't deal with them. That's the stagnancy. One of the things that I had written in my book, which I have yet to publish, I'm going to get there one day, I promise, was, we have this fear of diving deep. And I think of it as like water, like think about the sea or the ocean. When we dive deep, look at how much amazing things are down there. Yes, at first it might seem scary. The water is dark, you're far from the surface, but there's beautiful life. There's life, and there are things that you're like, wow, I never knew this existed. Like, what a shame it would be if we never discovered what's below the surface of the water. And that actually when we dive, like if you look at the action of diving into water, the water moves, right? There's energy. You move, you move the water around you. If you imagine that water is shallow, what happens to shallow water, like puddles, is they become stagnant and then they become filmy, right? They become pretty disgusting, like all sorts of bacteria can grow within it because there's no movement. And that to me is a metaphor of, if we are residing in the shallow waters of our being, we're creating a film. We're creating stagnancy. Whereas if we dive into the deeper aspects of ourselves, it's not wallowing. Diving in isn't wallowing. Staying in the shallow waters is wallowing. Diving deep is actually moving the energy. We're actually dealing with what is within us that seems like, oh, there's a shark down there and I'm too scared to go. But actually there's also a really beautiful underworld. And yeah, maybe there are sharks, but if you're not afraid of them, you know what I mean? It's like nature is so powerful when it comes to that. Like animals can sniff fear. So if we go in with curiosity rather than with fear or resistance, there's a lot to be discovered. So I just think like it's worth, like, don't fuck the pain away. Don't. It's hard. It's painful. Yes, that's the whole point. It's painful. But it's also the only way that we're going to liberate ourselves. And it's the only way that we're going to pull ourselves out of a mundane, never-ending Groundhog's Day of a pattern that feels like our lives are just being, we're doing the motions, getting through each day and getting through to the end of our life. And is that why we're here? Like, I don't think so. I don't think so. But it takes courage, and courage takes heart, and heart requires us to be vulnerable, and vulnerability requires presence. And presence just requires us to stay here for as long as we can. And that's it, just to stay. Just to stay. I've said it so many times. I'm going to continue to say it again and again and again. Don't fuck the pain away. Because you deserve to be paid attention to. You deserve to be loved and embraced and held and accepted for who you are and how you're feeling and what you're thinking. And we always want somebody else to do that for us, right? We all want the partner, the mother, the father, the sister, the brother, the teacher to do that for us. And it's lovely if they can. But at the end of the day, like, that's our job. That's our job. fuck, I've had to learn that a lot, especially not having grown up with my father and having to play out that role with partners. And the thing is, like, again, it's nice to share our life with someone, right? That's beautiful. Like, we want relationship, most of us. We want love. It scares us. It's vulnerable. Some of us avoid it. But deep down, we all need love because it's the fundamental part of our being, the makeup of who we are, of what life in the universe is made of, So we need it. It's like air. I think we got to know that we're deserving of that. We have been told for way too long that we're not good enough, that we're not worthy enough, that we don't belong. Of course we fucking do. We were born here. We belong. So yeah, the invitation for today is don't fuck the pain away. See if you can open yourself up to it. See if you can stay long enough. See if you can take care of yourself in it and maybe even find an ounce of love for yourself within it and see where that leads you. Because I can guarantee you that even though the path is challenging and it hurts sometimes and it's scary sometimes, like that's where you'll find your wings. That's where you'll find the true happiness, which is inner peace that can only come through walking through the pain. All right. Sorry for all the cursing. It had to come about this time, especially because of the song. I'm loving you all from afar and wishing you well. Take care. Thanks for listening.